Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of What's on My Desk. Today I want to talk to you about hot models and alternatives to those hot models, or what I would call maybe a bit more bang to the dollar. And I'm going to use a few models from AP to discuss that topic. Brought with me rose gold offshore with the gray dial on a strap. Brought the LeBron. I've been talking about the LeBron for a while and bring it up as an example. And I'm going to show you a very special limited edition watch, which is the QE2 from Audemars Piguet. And I brought an old tourbillon, which I showed you on my wrist on one of the Q&As that went up. And I'm going to start with the LeBron James. Arguably the best looking limited edition offshore on the market today. I love everything about it. I love the gray and gold combo. I love the gold applied numerals on the slate gray dial. I love the matching strap. This also comes with a crocodile strap, which is actually pretty terrible. The rubber strap is usually the best option. Automatic movement, love the ceramic buttons, and I love the diamond touch on the top pusher of the chronograph along with the ceramic crown. Even the chronograph guards have this applied gray material on top, sort of to fit with our overall theme. It goes to show that even though it's yet another offshore, Audemars Piguet really took their time in designing this watch, and they just cut it perfect. I wonder if LeBron was involved in the design process. I'm not so sure, I can't really state, but nevertheless, I would prefer this watch over the rose gold Schumacher. I do love the titanium Schumacher, but when it comes to rose gold, I think this would be the one offshore I would go with, or maybe the one I'm going to show you next. Originally retailed for $51,900. Believe it, out of the gate, this watch did not do well because this sort of came out after the whole limited edition offshore hype was over. People weren't sure how well this is going to do, and that was their mistake. I remember having this watch pre-owned, and I owned it for $34,000. And I was in Miami at the time, and my buddy Joe was there with us. I happened to have had that watch with me. I showed it to Joe, and I'm like, Joe, you should buy this. He's like, why? I'm like, trust me, you should buy this. This is actually an exceptionally good looking offshore. And on top of that, this is something that's going to, at the very least, retain value. I never tell people it's going to go up in value. Of course, Joe is a good friend of mine. I would make money on, so I would give it to him at cost. Till this day, he regrets not picking it up. Why? Because this watch still trades at $60,000 plus. How does this tie into the topic that I just mentioned in regards to alternatives? I'll tell you in just a moment. But first, I'm going to show you another hot one. And this is the QE2. This is not the first QE2 Audemars Piguet made. There were various limited editions for the QE2 Cup. This is the latest offshore that they came out in 2016. Let's talk about the watch. Ceramic case, ceramic button, ceramic crown, rose gold bezel, black dial with all gold markers with the exception of the red on the chronographs. Just a subtle little touch. Even the hands are gold. I like the end pieces, as you see here, that are also in gold. The rubber strap is great. I prefer the tang buckle on this watch, just like on the LeBron, over a deploying buckle. It's because it digs into the side of my wrist, but that's because I have a small wrist. And if you notice in a lot of the newer models, they have done away or gone away from this deploying buckle. What's there to say about the watch? It's a deadly combo, just like the LeBron. The rose against the black works. It's just a perfect combination. 45 millimeters, same movement as any other offshore that you see out there today. Nothing special there, but it's the combination and it is the overall look of this watch that makes this watch retail for $60,000 plus still. And mind you, original retail on the watch is 44 and change. So we're talking about 30% over list, much like the LeBron, or maybe a little less than a LeBron. Let's talk about a regular production offshore, right? This came out 2 years ago, rose gold, slate, dark gray dials, again, ceramic pusher, ceramic crown, automatic movement. You most probably are familiar with this watch, but nevertheless, I'll tell you why I showed you this watch. Retail on this watch is $40,700. Trades anywhere from $32,000 to $34,000 brand new. Roughly in that 20% off price range. And on a pre-owned end, you can probably find this watch around $30,000. It holds its value fairly decent even on the secondary market. Let's move right along and let me show you closer Audemars Piguet first automatic tourbillon. I showed you this thing on my wrist before. I'm going to give you a bit of a closer look on this watch. This is another pickup that I'm really excited about. And again, the way it happened was just crazy. I told you guys, literally I'm doing a video on history of Audemars Piguet and one of the dealer chats this watch pops up. I guess it was a sign. So here's the first automatic tourbillon from Audemars Piguet. Notice there's no crown. The crown is actually in the back. That's how you wind the watch. Butterfly style buckle. Just a beautiful, beautiful, classy watch, and it is an iconic watch because there's something behind it. So let's talk some numbers. Let's go back to what I started to discuss in regards to better value for your money. Again, going back to the question, what's a good investment? What watch will hold its value, and so on and so forth. Watches are not an investment, but you can buy them wisely. So where's the wise decision here? Let's talk about, first and foremost, the LeBron. When the LeBron was trading under its list value, I told you I had one as low as $34,000. I quickly recognized this to be the next watch. And again, having the knowledge that I have in the business doesn't mean that you have to have the same type of knowledge, but for the most part, it's kind of like common sense. At the time LeBron came out, weren't many limited editions out there. There was sort of a break between all the other limited editions that were already out there, right? Then I took a look at the watch and I said, you know what? This has to be the best looking Offshore to date from Audemars Piguet. And if you know AP, if you're a fan of AP, and this goes for any other brand for that matter, you could quickly recognize just the same and say, wow, this is quite the looker. 600 pieces made. It's a fairly large edition, but because they're not doing a trilogy like they did with some of the other stuff, like the Montoyas and the Barrichellos or the Schumachers, it's the one watch, 600 pieces. Who is it made for? LeBron James. In the world of basketball, probably the second most recognized name after Michael Jordan. I'm sure you would all agree, if not the same, right? So you put the two together and you say to yourself, okay, here's the best looking Offshore out there. They only made 600 pieces. Yes, they put a bunch on the market now. They're discounting. This is probably a good buy. And rightfully so if you're one of the guys that picked this watch up at retail or maybe even slightly under when they first came out. Onto the QA2, released in 2016. They made it for the 1 year, obviously for the cup for that year. This is where you kind of say the same exact thing. Here's a beautiful Offshore. At the time it came out in a new style Offshore with the new ceramic large pushers and a larger case. Now, for somebody to look at this watch and say, well, let me go back historically and see how the other QE2 cups did, because there were others out there. Well, they didn't do so well. It was a two-tone Offshore with a black dial. And again, they kept with a two-tone theme, except this is a ceramic case. That watch came on a strap and on a bracelet, and that was a hell of a looking watch. And today, if you go out in the market and try to find one of those, they're not there. I don't know of any out there that are available. If there were, I would definitely pick it up because they're very scarce, right? So you can look at that and say, wait a minute, how well did the other one do? And the other one actually did well. It didn't get sort of struck down by the fall of the limited editions of the past. And today, if you get out there and look for one, probably people, if somebody has one, they'd probably want to charge up what's $40,000 for that watch. Again, I don't have one. I don't know. I don't know what the market is because they haven't been trading, and that's really the bottom line. So by looking at those factors and saying, okay, I love the watch, and what's not there to love? This is a gorgeous watch. You know, if I pick this up at retail, odds are I may not lose any money on this, or maybe lose just a tiny bit, or if I get lucky, I may gain some. Well, if you were one of those guys and picked this watch up, you're going to reap the rewards today because, again, this watch is trading at 60 plus, and there's barely any out there. What's the downside of that? Well, the downside of that is when these watches get old. This is why I always tell you I don't have a glass ball. What happens when these watches get old? What happens when this watch becomes the age of the Montoya or some of the other limited editions that flop? Now, mind you, in between you had the crisis of '08 where everything kind of flopped. And the reason those limited editions never really went back up to where they were is because when people get burnt, so to speak, you know, they never want to go back, because once they saw a value of a watch go from 40,000 down all the way back down to 25, which is about where the Montoya is today, they kind of want to stay away from that stuff. And besides, the market trends today is the latest and the greatest, right? So this doesn't mean that 10 or 15 years from now, these things are going to be trading through the roof, or they may be. You never know. It all depends on the collectability of the brand. It all depends on other things. So yes, I've spoken to you about, you know, watches not being an investment, but I've always said you can buy some things wisely. And if you sort of put that thought process behind these, you definitely made a wise decision. But now is the question, at which point do I sell and reap the rewards, or do I keep this watch forever, enjoy it, knowing that I paid not a whole lot for it, and if God forbid I ever need to sell it, in the very least I won't lose any money. I don't see this going down to 40,000 anytime soon, and nor do I see this going down to 40,000 anytime soon. So how is this an alternative? Well, let's take a Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711 that's been trading upwards of 70,000. Yes, it did take a dip. Now it's trading at that $55,000 to $60,000 price range. The old coveted Nautiluses. And ask yourself a question. Do I go after the hype? Do I go after the fact that this watch is supposedly the most collectible watch out there? Or do I pick something sensible like this, which is a much better looking watch? And I don't care what anybody tells me. Any one of these two watches versus the Nautilus, I mean, let's put them side by side. Ian? There's no way in the world anybody out there can tell me that Nautilus is such a great looking watch. In fact, anybody that buys a Nautilus 5711 in stainless steel is someone that is not buying it for the looks. They're buying it for the name. They're buying it for the fact that it's the coveted Nautilus, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So this is your alternative to things such as that. Now let's talk about APs for a second, because AP also has a crazy following when it comes to their steel stuff. Let's talk about their blue dials, right? 15400 ST blue dial trades upwards of 25K. The same thing in a chronograph with a blue dial trades upwards of 25K. 15202 blue dial trades at $40,000 plus. Again, collectible, yes. Why is it collectible? Because everybody wants one at the moment. But what happens 10 to 15 years from now? How many will be produced? How many are going to be out there floating around? And what happens if a market takes a correction? Because remember, they're not limited editions such as these, okay? There's only so many of these that were made, and that's it, they're done. Where the 15400s, now discontinued, obviously, but now replaced by the 15500s that have the same height. Chronos, all those wonderful things that are out there are going to be made and made and made until they get discontinued, and then the price will jump up again. But then what happens when you get out in the market 10 years from now and there's thousands of them out there? Compare the two. And at the same token, take a 15400 ST, Ian, please, with a blue dial. What's the better looking watch? This, or the watch that's on my face right now? Thanks for that, Ian, by the way. I think the answer is fairly simple. Let's talk to another alternative, which was this Offshore that I brought. This Offshore retails for $34,000. This isn't something that's going to go up in value. Most likely when you buy it, it'll go down in value. But it's not going to go down in value much. At the current market, with the brand new ones being 32 to 34 and pre-owned was trading around $30,000, you see your downside right there. And with most watches, you don't see that kind of downside. Usually when you go from brand new out of the store down to pre-owned, you end up losing a lot more. Where here, it's hovering at less than 10%, right? Which is great. So again, ask yourself a question. Let's take a Royal Oak chronograph blue, right? And compare it to this guy, where the Royal Oak chronograph blue, this watch will cost, say if you buy a pre-owned, this watch will cost you $5,000 more. Now you end up with a watch that lists for $40,700 for just $5,000 more than the other one. But again, this is still a nice gold watch and a hell of an alternative. Now, I'm not out here telling you not to go out there and buy 15202s and 15400s or 15500s or any of the stainless steel collectible models. If this is what your heart desires, this is what you buy. I'm simply talking about alternatives. And the last alternative is to come up with something that you truly, truly love, that you truly admire and desire, that speaks to you, that has history behind it, that's not hyped up at all. And this is why I brought this little tourbillon. The reason I bought this tourbillon is because it speaks to me from the history perspective. First, Audemars Piguet, first automatic tourbillon, built in 1986. It's about 34 years old. This has a great story behind this. There's a lot of history behind it from a brand that I just showed you that has a lot of history behind it. And this watch is not trading for a whole lot of money, believe it or not. You can pick this watch up for around that $20,000 price, and a little more, a little less, depending on who has it and how much money they want to make on it, right? When I bought this watch, I quickly recognized that this is not a watch that I'm going to sell overnight. I'll sell these before this episode is over. This may sit in my safe for 2-3 months, maybe even longer. But I will find out one individual that really, really completely does not care about resale values, about the hottest and the greatest, about the hypes, about the people behind the watch, about the events that take place behind the watch, about a big gold watch or about a blue dial, for say, or something that everybody wants, like a 5711 Nautilus. I'm looking for that client that can appreciate history and that is strictly buying what they like and appreciate for themselves. Because you know what? I put this watch on the other day and Arthur looked at me with this look on his face, like, what the hell are you wearing? Arthur doesn't get this. Arthur has a LeBron. He will pick this 10 times over before he picks one of these or any other vintage stuff for that matter. I guess I'm made out of something different, so I tend to go with the classics. I tend to go with history over hype. And that just brings me back to my point that there is another alternative, and that alternative is always what I say. You buy what you like first and foremost. You wear it, enjoy it. Doesn't matter what everybody thinks. Doesn't matter what it's going to be worth 50 years from now or 10 years from now or 100 years from now. These are expensive toys. You buy them, you enjoy them for whatever you may enjoy them for. And whether it's you showing off the hottest, the latest, and the greatest that nobody has, or putting on a classic watch such as this, where most people are going to say, oh, that's kind of ugly and small, not up to the times, it makes no difference. Guys, before I say that's it for me for today, I'm still rocking my original Offshore from 1993 that I showed you guys before. Thank you once again for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Put a little twist on it. It was about showing the watches, but it was also something about proving the point. Comment below, let me know what you think. like, share, subscribe, and do all those wonderful things that help my channel grow on a daily basis. And I'll see you guys next week for more watch reviews and other videos.